Shalom and welcome to Rivkush, the CJN podcast celebrating Jews of color, talking about all things Jewish and anything else we wish to speak about. Today, I am thrilled to have Tamara Podemski as my guest. She is a critically acclaimed Indigenous actor. This year, she won her second Canadian Screen Award for her role in Coroner. She had previously won this award and an ACTRA for Outstanding Female Performance. Tamara is multi-talented. She also sings. She has won the Aboriginal Music Award for Best Female Artist and Songwriter. Tamara can currently be seen on the FX series Reservation Dogs and Amazon's hit Outer Range. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, shalom.
Shalom, shalom, yeah.
Shabbat shalom.
I almost, I got to gear myself up to that. It's like Shabbat shalom, gonna have some good sleep time. So I'm so thrilled. I'm so thrilled. I want to talk about so many things. I obviously want to explore your career, which is stellar. I just finished watching The Aunties on
Oh my gosh.
I just got a little chill. Oh my goodness. I have so many feelings around that.
Good.
And I caught my own self off guard.
That's good. That's the point of the work that we're doing.
Well, it's working. It's working.
Good.
So
Good.
I also want to talk about, because I think we have something, it's minor in common, but it kind of is in common. A house full of girls growing up.
Yes.
I have 3 sisters.
Okay, I have 2 sisters. Yes.
And you fit in
I'm the middle.
You're the
Yeah.
You're the I'm sorry. No.
It's certainly a cross to bear in life.
There you go.
It's a personality that is forced to be reckoned with. They really need to find their place. So it's been helpful in my career. Let's say that.
That's kind of cool. There are TikToks with middle children taking over the TikTok. Well, I was an oldest, and that was something to bear.
Absolutely.
The baby should thank me.
Yeah.
The baby should thank me daily.
Yeah. No, it's a tough one, and especially when, wherever the parents were at when that first one came around, I think, really determines, who you're going to be in the world. And my sister, for sure, is a product of that.
There you go. There you go. And of course, I want to talk about just you and you growing up. And so for those who are listening, Tamara, her father is Israeli, correct? Israeli Ashkenazi.
From Kfar Saba. Yeah.
Okay. And your mother is Ojibwe from?
Muscopheating First Nation in the Fort Capel Valley in Saskatchewan.
Okay. And so I definitely want to delve into that amazing, wonderful blend of cultures, because that's how I see it. Yeah. And so absolutely. So let's start there.
Okay.
So kind of like, I guess these questions you probably have heard many, many, many times. As a Jew of color myself, I've had questions many, many times.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I'm going to ask you, let's start with like growing up, because you are, what was that like? Not just, okay, so where did you grow up? Let's start there. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Toronto, in the very Jewish ghetto of Bathurst and Wilson.
Oh, Shane, live there.
Where really, it's funny because I've spoken to a few people, in adulthood later on that also grew up in Bathurst and Wilson. And depending on where you are in that Bathurst and Wilson, Bathurst and Lawrence area, you might have only thought that there were only Jews and Black people. Like that, right. And that's what I have spoken about.
You're right. Not just Jews and Black people, but sometimes Blacks who also happen to be Jewish.
Yes, exactly.
Like my family.
Yes, and that would make perfect sense. it was such a concentrated world. And even though my world was beyond that, because the school that I went to, which was probably one of the largest influences in my young life, brought me to this performing arts school where I got to see the entire world and like blew my world open. But really in that very Jewish, middle class neighborhood at Bathurst and Wilson, that was where we kind of understood community. That's where, even though we were living in this dual culture home, and the biggest part of the urban native population was at Spadina and Bloor, where the Native Canadian
Yeah.
Center was. It was There's something so specific about when you grow up in knowing that you're not only a part of the Jewish community, but it's like it's permission to exist. And I think for the immigrant side of my family, when my grandfather came over with his very young children, that's, they first started in Kensington. You find where the other Jews are. You need that safety in numbers. You need to, and in those early years of like, where do you find jobs? It was all helping each other out. And so, I think that really helped me to understand where the strength lies, and that life is hard, and no matter how those hardships
Yeah.
play out, you have your community. So those very early teachings, and even though I drive by Bathurst and Wilson, still to this day, and it does not look at all like the world that we grew up in.
Right.
But I know, and my sisters, we just recall kind of how that place shaped us. And even when we became adults and we, ventured out on our own, we moved a block away from my dad. Like, just
Come
very
on.
typical. Like, it's so typical.
Yep.
My sister bought her first house. I think she managed to get 3 blocks away.
Ooh,
I
she
bought
really ventured far.
I think I got a condo across the street that I could literally, from my balcony to her front porch, we could wave at each other.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah. And then my younger sister moved in with me in the condo. I mean, also have lived all over the world and have ventured out, but the security of that familiarity and that community, just it's so much of my Jewish identity.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
So, how did your parents meet?
Yes. So we had teen parents. So my dad was living in Toronto. He was actually in the Yonge and Eglinton neighborhood with a bunch of other guys, and they were having a teenage party. And my mom, who had just hitchhiked across Canada from, I think she was coming from BC at the time. She was 16. And
Hitchhiked across
yeah,
Canada.
yeah. I mean,
Wow.
but that you could
Those
do that.
days,
You could
those
do that those
days.
days. Even in my
Yeah.
younger days, when you're doing, you could hitchhike and get to where you
Yeah.
needed to go. I mean, these are just things that are just forbidden now. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not that world anyway. Thank God she made it, and she just showed up at this party, and they met. They're just it's the time of just peace and love. They were hippies. This was the
Oh, that's so cool.
early 70s, and it was a teenage pregnancy, and it was not really a relationship that was like, we want to start a family. But when she got pregnant and later showed up on my grandparents' doorstep, they just decided to start a family. And they were teen
Wow.
parents. I think she was 17 when Jen was born, and my dad was, I think, 20. And yeah, they just continued doing that for about 10 years, for all three of us.
Mhm.
But the there's many issues that came up, and many just it was very challenging for them, and there are many reasons why, but basically it created a really broken home, and it was decided that it was best for my dad to raise us, and my mom left, and she dealt with her herself
Mm-hmm.
and took care of herself. And it was in our teen years. So my dad basically raised us all prepubescent girls. He had to do
Dang.
the first tampon run, figuring
Oh
out
yeah.
how. Yeah,
Oh whoa
yeah,
whoa.
yeah. Like it was like to have three girls before puberty, before boys, before just whatever that crazy time is in a young
Yeah.
girl's life. And then we, through lots of therapy and through much encouragement from my dad, we rebuilt the relationship with our mother in our teenage years. And we are now she's a huge part of our life, and things are just a lot of work has been done,
That's
but
so
it was,
wonderful.
yeah, it's very much a credit to the conversations, the
Mm-hmm.
therapy,
Mm-hmm.
I would say the arts. He put us. He just My dad wanted to make sure that we didn't internalize what was going on. He wanted to make sure that we moved it. We processed it. I
Right.
mean, everything from us going to Alateen meetings, one-on-one therapy, group therapy. Gosh, there was just all the alternative methods. He was also this incredible. He was a publisher of a book back then called the Alternative Health Services Directory, which is one of the first of its kind in Toronto, which was showcasing, or it was a directory, like a phone book,
Mm-hmm.
of all the alternative health practitioners. But this is before people knew what yoga was, what
Yeah,
food,
exactly.
what
Because
Alexander technique, what Chinese herbs were, acupuncture, and he listed all the services. But anyway, one of the things that he would do was exchange services for people who were putting in ads instead of payment. He would just get us services through these different healers.
how
Yeah,
amazing.
he understood. I know, probably was just scared out of his mind, of
Yeah.
how the dysfunction, how the trauma in the home, how all of that would play out in our lives. And we were
Right.
like 4 years old, 9 years old, 13 years old. And I pay, yeah, it's that that also just let us know that we we weren't alone in what we were going through. And also, when you know that, and when you know that you're not alone, it's the, whatever level of victimization you're in, is lessened, because you see all the other suffering that's going on.
Yeah.
And 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 then it also just became a less shameful experience. And so I think that was what allowed us to, through our art, just have this other place where we could freely and yeah, freely express ourselves. It was like a safe place, and we had so much to say and so much to
Oh
move through
gosh.
us. And so, yeah, some people could think it's a coincidence that all three of us became performing artists,
You,
dancers,
you
singers,
know, I was
actors.
that was going to be
And
a
it's like,
question, right?
were your parents in the business?
Yeah, it's
And
like already like
yeah,
the Jacksons,
yeah,
like
but no,
but
nothing like
nothing
that.
like that.
I think it was
No.
more that the influence of my dad, who just would literally drive us all around the city, would exchange services, and he didn't have a lot of money, so it was, he would find ways to barter for classes.
Like how creative and how amazing that is.
Yeah, and I think part of that was him being a young dad, right? Like, just
Yeah.
that there's something about, and he was not of the, suit and tie world. He was not. He was already a creative guy on his own, but I think knowing, there's something about being young parents, and already you are doing the thing that nobody else is doing, and already you're kind
True.
of on the periphery. You're already, not being accepted by
Yeah.
mainstream culture.
You're right, especially in those days,
Yeah,
right?
like it gives you a little bit of I don't know. You know that you're already being judged, so why not do whatever you feel the right thing to do is?
Yeah.
And I am forever grateful for how he saw that how we thrived in the arts, and how it was helping us deal with the childhood trauma that was going on in our home.
Thank God he did all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Thank God. Did he, speaking of judged, and I don't know if it's going to sound harsh, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Did he ever, or did you ever feel judged within the Jewish community because of being Indigenous, or
Yeah,
like?
I think the judgment came less from being other
Mm-hmm.
than by not being fully Jewish. So I didn't feel. Did you know what I mean by
Ah,
that?
yes, I do.
I
Yes, I
didn't
do.
feel that there was
I do.
prejudice or any kind of racism when in those early years that we were Native, or that people even knew what that was.
Mm-hmm.
It was just that in some circles we weren't good enough because we weren't fully Jewish, and because our mother wasn't Jewish.
Because you're patrilineal.
Yes.
So it's like,
Yeah.
oh,
And
yeah.
so, even
Mm-hmm.
though we were deeply embedded in the youth movement, Hashomer Hatzair,
Oh,
which started. Do you know
I
that?
know it.
Yeah.
Yes, I
So,
do.
my
Yes, I do.
grandfather, my Sabas, was in the original creation of it in out of Lodz, Poland. And then after the war, they moved to Israel, which is many of the kibbutz systems were, many of the kibbutzim there were connected to Hashomer Hatzair and those
Yeah.
early Zionist youth movements. And then so my father and my aunt, they both started when they came to Canada, the new one that started here
Yeah.
in Toronto, and then we grew up in it. So like
Okay.
very socialist, grassroots youth movement,
Yeah.
and that was where every Friday, every Shabbat we were there. Our summer camps, our winter camps, it was our whole youth was spent with this within this youth group. And that's where it started to come out. And even though these were our closest friends, that's where it started to come out, the questions of our mother, and that we weren't really Jewish. We were still very young at this point. So, and we knew how Jewish we were, and we knew
You were
how
kind of super Jewish. Like, think about it. You're kind of super Jews.
it was like
Anyways.
we also my Saba was like, he always talked about the camps. He talked about his story in the Holocaust. Like these were conversations that were open and regular in our home. So understanding that lineage, we would go to Israel every few years because one brother came to Canada, the other brother stayed in Israel. So all of our cousins and family and aunts and uncles are over there.
Wow.
And so we had that connection that was very strong for us, in addition to our secular but somewhat traditional world in Toronto,
Right.
of that Jewish culture. So to be called out on, you're not Jewish enough,
Yeah.
was really confusing, because how much more Jewish do you want me to do? Do
Again,
you want me
yeah,
to be?
you were like super
We
Jews.
went to Hebrew school too, like when we were
You
like
see?
after school programs. So our Hebrew was pretty good. We're writing and reading, and it's just like, but still, this isn't enough. And so I think in an effort to just shut them all up,
Uh-huh.
my dad offered us. I remember having a choice in it, but he was like, "Do you want to just get converted?" And just when you're young, it's quite an easy
I
process.
You know what? I just learned that yesterday.
Yeah.
Because we're talking, and I was like, excuse me? That's it?
Oh yeah, you do
It's like,
the
but then you
mikvah.
know
Yeah.
what? I said that probably should be just
Yeah.
it.
Yes. Yes. Because especially for us who like we didn't know what else we could do to just to stop the commentary. And so I can't speak on behalf of the other sisters. Sarah was quite young; she was maybe 5 years old at the time. So, but I knew for me, I was like, if this one thing will stop all those kids from teasing me about this thing. But I know in my heart and in my young understanding, I was no more Jewish after that than I was before that. But what it allowed me to do was help me in those situations where
Yes.
people challenged my
Yes.
Jewishness.
Yes. Because literally after that, all you were was just a wet Jew.
Yeah. Wet and cold and you
Yeah.
know, like just yeah. Yeah.
Oh
But I
gosh. But
still am I'm glad we did it because it did make
mhm.
my life easier.
Yeah.
It also makes my son's life easier because I also have an interfaith marriage
Okay.
and yet it's something that he won't have to deal with because of that technicality.
Yes. Isn't that something, eh? Because it
Yeah.
really is in the whole grand scheme of who we are, who we should be,
Yeah.
who we strive to be,
Yeah.
that thing carries so much stuff with
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
because we're still having those discussions, who is a Jew, and people can lose their poop over
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I just sit there and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, when people say, "Oh, they're only half Jewish," and then or what I find is sometimes those who hold the most judgment, I'll turn to them and say, "I don't recall seeing you in synagogue this week,"
Yeah.
and it's like, wow,
Yeah.
don't judge.
Yeah.
Look inside your own house. Look
Yes.
inside your own
Yeah.
house,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
But that's I hate. Sometimes it feels like that's how we roll.
Yeah. And I see it in my native community as well. I mean,
Okay.
this self
Yes.
identifying, the autonomy to self identify is so huge, and yet also there are social constructs that we follow, and it's really up to each person and how you run your family. I know that within my family, there's 6 granddaughters that have come from my grandfather who came over to Canada, and I this is just a fact. This is not this is or like an observation. Um, all 6, 3 of them who went to Hebrew school, like
Like day
hardcore,
school.
like day school, Hebrew day school.
Okay.
Um, hold on, 1, 2, 3. No, all 6 did not marry Jewish men. Right? So, like
Mm,
almost like in a strange way, it's like a
mm.
phenomenon that
It actually is,
with
and it
how
also
heavily influenced and our world and our like
yeah,
it blows my mind. We weren't quite
because
sure if we could say that, but the third one, the 6th one is just getting married next year, and I was like, oh my
yeah.
gosh, there's the last one, and it's really true.
So again, so these are day school kids and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it
And
kind
not
of
interfaith, like they're the picture,
yeah, yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah,
picture
yeah.
that everyone wants to see, right?
And
2 Jewish parents, and grew up in
yeah,
that really, really like concentrated Jewish
yeah, yeah, yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah. Lived in the hood,
Yeah,
all that stuff, all the things that they say
will
will
direct you towards that. Yeah, yeah,
exactly. Dang,
yeah,
dang. So let's talk about your indigenous family.
yeah. So we're Anishinaabe, which is the word in our language. In English, it's Ojibwe. In our language, it's Anishinaabe, from Saskatchewan.
Mhm.
And out there, they're also called Soto because the,
Soto.
the French named them out there. But
Mm,
what's very cool about being here in Ontario is this is Anishinaabe territory as well. So
yes.
in terms of culture and language and traditions and just there's I know this
Yes.
community, and even where I live right now, I'm a stone's throw away from Christian Island, Beausoleil First Nation here. So I love, even though I'm far from our reservation.
I think I know where you are.
Oh, up in Tiny. Yeah.
When you said, I'm like,
Yeah.
I know where she is.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue.
um, Even though I'm not on our traditional territory, which even in our family, we that was we're nomadic people. Like, we can
Mhm.
trace all my mom's side of the family all the way back to Lenni Lenape territory, which is in New York. It was Manhattan. They're Lenni Lenape are the ones who sold Manhattan for
Ah,
10 cents or something like that.
yeah,
It wasn't a
something.
place to live, though. And people didn't understand that. It was great for gatherings, which is why I think it
Yeah.
has that energy, but it wasn't a place to like settle and live. But anyway, Lenni Lenape territory, Delaware territory, and then after Trail of Tears, when the government was moving all the Native Americans to Oklahoma, that's where they moved to Oklahoma. And then from Oklahoma, they walked all the way straight up to Saskatchewan. So if you kind of just do a straight line
Okay.
up, you end up there. So even though Saskatchewan, I don't really feel. I've been there. We've been to our res there. It's beautiful land. My mother, obviously, she's born there. She has a different connection to the land there. But I feel like, because I'm born here and this is what I know, I'm
Hmm.
just it worked out really well that I was
Yeah.
born on Anishinaabe territory. And so
Yes.
that it's, even at the Friendship Center, it's still, it's Mohawks, there's, Métis, there's Anishinaabe, so many different nations in Toronto, but I still feel the how predominant the Anishinaabe culture was in my life and my early exposure to it, and how lucky I was to have that, because we're urban, as we used to call us, as they say back then, urban Indians. And
Hmm.
that there's a way to be that and exist in your world without, even though you're in the city.
Right.
And so, even, early introductions to that, most of our family is still out west on my mom's side. But in those early years, they would come and visit, we'd go out there. But really, it was that urban native population out of the Friendship Center in Toronto. And also, so lucky to be in a city that had such a rich community. So that was our community that we found. And then, even when my mom left, we'd already been so exposed. It was in our home, right? Like, it wasn't a home. I find sometimes in interfaith homes, one culture trumps another.
Yeah.
And mostly, I can appreciate, now as a parent myself, it's just hard. It's just a lot of work that you're
Yeah.
responsible for. Like,
Yeah.
what are you bringing to the table? Well, I can't be. This is what I'm bringing to the table,
Yeah.
and
Because you have to be active about it. You
very,
have to be active.
very active,
Yeah.
and very, you're just, and conscious about how are we, and especially if you're a little bit farther away, or farther removed from your family, how do you bring these elements
Hmm.
into your child's life? And so, in that way, I really, I know what was different with us. And I speak to so many different uh, native people who grew up in, or who grew up in non-native homes,
Right.
or also, there's this other crazy phenomenon of so many native kids who were adopted into Jewish families. So when we first came out in the early years, when we became, when we were on TV and we were starting to do press and stuff, we were always
Uh-huh.
very open about our dual heritage.
Right.
And we spoke about, being Jewish Indians. And then, out of the woodwork, it was like, all people would start contacting, I'm a Jewish native too.
Yeah, that's
And
something, eh?
what we would see was, and I'm sure you could trace it back to, um, you know, just the mitzvah of adoption, of how
Yeah.
you contribute to the world in that way, and how Jews might be overrepresented in that world, because it's one of the good deeds. It's one of the ways
Yeah.
to help. But yeah, we were meeting a lot of
Wow.
native kids that were growing up in Jewish homes.
Okay. You
Uh,
know what? Until you said that,
that's my
because I
theory. I
just,
don't know.
no, I never really thought about it. But as you're saying it, I'm thinking about Jewish families that I know who have adopted. And I'm like, we do that more than anybody else.
I wonder, I don't know what the stats are, but I know even just through my lens of Native children that were adopted by Jewish families, it seems disproportionate to,
I'm looking at it at
yeah,
my lens
yeah,
too, as seeing, Black
uh-huh,
Jews, kids who have been adopted by, dang,
yeah.
I
I'd love to
never
hear
even,
if there are experts out there who know
oh,
better,
yeah, yeah.
to represent that, but it's been an
I think I know
observation.
somebody I'm going
Yeah.
to ask who
um,
happened to have adopted.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask. Wow.
But it brings me back to, I have many friends who are in interfaith relationships, who are in, raising kids of dual or more heritages and cultures and languages, and I can appreciate how difficult it is to have access to both, but also in their understanding of what happened in their homes, and that they just said one just took over the other. One just,
Mm-hmm.
or they didn't know how to find space within this other culture, whatever the
Mm-hmm.
dominant one was. And
Right.
so when it's left to the kids, it's very hard. In the same way that we have generations now who are trying to reclaim a language, Anishinaabemowin, which is, has a really good chance of survival because of this resurgence of language revitalizations. But that's what happens. If you are not teaching it, and if you are not saying this is the most important thing for my kids to know, where they come
Mm-hmm.
from, who they are, how we make sense of life through, how we relate to each other, they're just left to outside influences, and they're too little to do the work on their own. So
Of course.
I'm really grateful that no matter how difficult, it was for my parents to find peace with each other, they're they were so rooted in their own cultures and faiths, and
Right.
actually so much of it didn't cancel out each other.
Right.
The importance of where we come from, honoring our ancestors, continuing the traditions, the fierce protection of our languages and traditions. Those are things that are in complete alignment, and like that's easy to do side by side. So
Tamara, you know how hard that, hearing you, how rare that is? What you've just said, the fact that it happened, that both were embraced and treated with the respect both
and
cultures
equal, and yeah,
deserved and
equal respect.
equal.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Like that is
And we
so
couldn't have made that up
incredible.
because we were little, we were
Mm,
young.
yeah.
So I can only credit them, and that they I know that it was a hard home to be in, and it must have been a really hard marriage to be in. And you have 3 kids. So
Mhm.
where you say this is the priority amidst the priority of putting food on the table. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
like
Like there are
seriously.
so many
Yeah.
other things to worry about.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
yet I think because it's more a representation of how they were raised in their own identity, that it
Right.
also didn't take an effort on their part. When
Because
my
they were
mother
so
speak
rooted, you mean,
exactly,
in their,
exactly,
yes. Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so which is just a blessing on, because both of them are coming from first generation, one side residential school survivors for my
I
mother,
was going to ask you about
Holocaust
that.
survivor on
Yeah.
my father. So both of them are dealing with the repercussions of that genocide.
Holding a lot of trauma.
Yes, and being like uh, trying to be erased. Like the fact that they
Hmm.
are even here, the next generation after that initial kind of wipeout or attempt for a wipeout.
Right.
Um, they, maybe in those ways that's what may have placed them in a similar way of how to respond to
Yeah.
uh, why they need to
keep it moving
keep
forward.
it moving
Keep it
forward,
moving
and their
forward.
sense of it was just so clear to them that it actually wasn't effortful. It was just
Instinctual, it
essential,
sounds
and
like.
instinctual,
Yeah.
and just a fundamental part of
Wow.
how they are in the world, which then they pass on to us.
Exactly. So, because of the events of the last, the last 2 years it's kind of a blur for me,
Yeah.
so I really have a hard time distinguishing months and things.
Yeah.
But we know that last year there was a lot of, I sometimes try and be tactful and I probably shouldn't be. There was a lot of conversation and shock and surprise over um over residential schools.
Yeah.
And I remember having conversations with people who were like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that." And I sit there and I say, "Where have you been living all your life?"
Well, here
And
in
yeah,
Canada,
but
because
and
it's
like
very
in
easy to live here without knowing
wow.
what this
I'm
country was built on. It is
I
very
guess
easy.
maybe it's because of how I was raised, maybe because
No,
I'm a
you were,
minority within it,
and your
that
eyes
I'm
are
more
open.
attuned to
Yes,
that.
exactly.
I'm just like, you people have got to be kidding me. And yes, they referred to them as you people.
Yeah.
Because it was like, how do you not know?
And yes, continue. It's
Yeah,
you're
like
making me get all riled up
I
again.
was. Most of the time
Yeah.
I was just
I know.
gobsmacked. And then I don't know how you feel, because I know during when people were surprised that Black people were being killed in the United States, because they were shocked about that too. And I remember, all of a sudden it was, let's blacken our profiles. Let's do this. And I say to people, I say, first of all, why don't you ask me, Black person, what I think you need to do to what I need, what I think, not about me without me. So
Yeah.
don't do things for me
Yeah.
without involving me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So don't just put on an orange shirt for a day
Yeah.
and say I've done my bit.
Yeah.
So that's my little soapbox.
Yeah.
Over to you, because it is personal to you.
Yeah. First of all, I feel you. I do. Second of all, I think unless you are the other, you will never see life in the way we do, or unless something very personal has happened to you to open your eyes. And that's what privilege does. Privilege just allows people to close that privilege just protects. That's what it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Shields,
Yeah.
protects. Yeah.
And so I wasn't shocked that people were so shocked.
I guess, truth be told, yeah, you're right.
Because
disappointed?
Yeah. But it was no different than all my life going through school, and the only bit of history that they choose to include in history, it's only in history, because they refuse to recognize in any kind of Indigenous education in the public school system that we're anything but history. So you're not seeing any modern day contemporary issues come up in social studies and in environment, like in any of these other places. We exist in a history section of a unit.
Yeah,
in
like
grade
they
10.
were.
Yes,
They
and
were,
it's
not they are.
this is what they used to live in, and this is where snowshoes came from.
Yes.
So sitting through, what do we have, 12 years of school, and feeling absolutely invisible at every point where there was an opportunity to include us in the story of this nation, they didn't. And so you just get really used to that. And then, there comes a time when you're a little bit older, and especially, where you get the people who are crossing over, the people who, the allies, those early years of allies where they just happen to read a book, to read an article, but with that sometimes comes a romanticization, and sometimes even a salvation,
Oh, I was going to say, let me put on my white hat and my
yeah,
white coat and go
yeah,
save those
yeah,
natives.
yeah.
You mean that?
Yes. and sometimes with really good intent, right?
But
Well, what's the good intent? The good, I see you. Maybe that's just the beginning part of I see that something
okay,
is amiss there. Let's give them that.
you're a good person.
that just something in their little, in their matrix, right? There's a glitch of like something's not right here, and they noticed. So
Okay.
those are what I always feel like those early allies came out of that, and then, but still, even after, I mean, what was most shocking to me, even though the reveal of the mass graves was not shocking to any Indigenous people. We know
Wasn't shocking
no,
to
and
me.
even on my reserve, we have our
I was
own
like, really?
search going on for the Lebret school that my grandparents went to. These searches are being done everywhere on their own because they're not they have to kind of fund them on their own. So even though that wasn't shocking, the thing that was most shocking to me was within my Jewish family, people were reaching out to my sisters and me to say, I cannot believe I didn't know this. And you are my cousin, and we know your mother, and we know that she's native. They probably know she's Ojibwe. They know she's from Muscopeding. They know the story enough to know and then Saul married this native girl, and they had like little native Jewish babies. Like it was part of the family's narrative, right? Like
narrative, yeah,
and but that they were able to say, but I know nothing further than that.
wow.
And I don't think we knew that your grandparents were residential school survivors. I don't know. And they reached out to us personally, and they talked with us. It was it was
That's
huge.
huge.
It was huge. And I love my family so much
That's
that
like
they were,
huge.
and this is also, we're in the public, we're like
You're
public
public people.
personalities. So
Yeah, yeah,
we have many interviews that talk
yeah,
about this stuff.
yeah.
They're not watching all that stuff, and
No.
no matter how many articles, no matter how many shows we're on that maybe that discussing these issues, there's still a disconnect. It's and of who personally we are their cousins. We grew up together.
It's family
All our other deep, secrets,
stuff. Yeah.
and we have shared personal moments through the years. How has this one part that actually changes the way I think about the whole world and the country I live in, and you guys are so close. You were actually within hands reach for me to get this info or to open my eye, and it didn't happen. And it was hard because was that up to me? Was that up to us? Like
It's hard,
where, because I really do feel we are so open about who we come from. We self-identify on both sides. In my opening intro of wherever I'm speaking, it's granddaughter of Holocaust survivors
Yeah,
and residential
yes.
school survivors, and yet uh, it also is so far away, so foreign, so difficult to understand that even if you might have heard something somewhere, if you can't if you don't get an opportunity to sit down with somebody and really understand, or what was happening to people was just watching the images. They needed to be smacked in the face with the horror of how this country was founded. And that's not even, we're already talking, 100 years after contact. Like we have
Yeah.
500 years to talk about. And the residential school system made a part of that, but there are all these other things. So
Before, exactly.
so, it took a slap in the face for so many of them. It took being shaken like that with those horrific images. I couldn't watch
In your
any of it.
face.
It was very triggering for, those of us who have who either are part of those communities where they know their family was buried, bringing so many of the bodies home. It was very, and my mother, I was actually shooting down in New Mexico when all of this happened. So I didn't get, I wasn't bombarded by the news as much as we were in Canada, because the US media got a little bit of it, but it wasn't the same way if I was here listening to the radio or watching the news.
Yes.
So in some way, but of course, all over my feeds and just checking
Yeah.
in, I knew what was going on. But my mother was staying with me at the time. We did not speak about it at all. It went on for about 2 weeks of like the initial, but it was like it's now just an open wound, and and let's just give it some breathing space right now. And I was talking to my sister. I was like, "You won't believe it, but we're here together. We're like in the same house. She's staying with me for 2 weeks. We don't talk about it, and it's not denial. Don't talk about it. It's all so kicked up right now. Something that we live with all the time. I have gone every time I go to Muscatine. I go to Lebret. There's only the frame of the entry to the school there, but I pay my respects. I released a song last year in honor of my grandparents on Orange Shirt Day. So it's not something we are pushing down. It's not something we are avoiding to talk about. It's something that we live with all the time. But that moment just felt way too intense and common, and just the noise from everyone else. I just needed to check out. But yeah, the most beautiful
Yeah.
part was the Jewish family who were able to mostly acknowledge their privilege of
Yeah.
the protection of coming to a country where they were just given a good life, and they were able to, you know, yeah, they were sold a different picture of
Yeah.
what this country was, which is difficult for many immigrant cultures who are grappling with that. Where do I sit with that? This is the country I came to start my new family, for my freedom, for my, and that's real and true. And so
Absolutely.
and I think that was the other part is I come from immigrants also. And I know what Canada provided my grandfather, who went through 6 camps and finally was liberated in Bergen-Belsen, and then
Wow.
made Aliyah, and then started his family in Israel, but also just the trauma of the war,
Yeah.
of which his brother managed to hide through.
Uh-huh.
And he had his family in Israel, but he just they wanted my grandmother's family was already moving to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
They had 2 little kids. They wanted a new life. And there is this
Yes.
country that is
And to
saying we're
feel
free
safe.
and open, and
Isn't this
and
something? It's like,
so I
is the word
get it.
dichotomy? Is the word dichotomy? I don't know. Where it's like, it's, one side of your family, it was life, it was
Mhm.
safety, it was this,
Yeah.
and the other side of your family, it represents
It's a genocide that is
loss,
still going
deep,
on.
yeah,
Exactly. One is an
exactly.
escape from
So,
genocide, and the other is
and one
like
is,
just this
yeah,
invisible
it's just
genocide that
like,
is continuing to go on. Yeah.
it's like, holy
Yeah.
cow. But I'm processing what you're saying,
I am too.
and
No, I'm remembering that time, and I just remember that
yeah.
detail of like of not talking about it because it was
Yeah,
just
I kind
so
of get it.
raw. It
I
was
kind
so
of
raw.
get
What are we going to
it.
talk about? The same thing we
What?
always
And
talk
you just,
about? How
it
much
was
it
almost like,
hurts, you know?
yeah, and you both get it, and you're both in that moment, and you just both
Yeah.
needed your own
Yeah.
moment. So I kind of get
Yeah.
it, and and it would have been a lot, because it was a lot. It was from everywhere, and it just was like, it just, it, I don't know, it was one of those things where it's like, and what will be found today, because it's deep, and it's deep, and it's deep, and in my gut, I think, guys, we're at the tip of all the crap that Canada has done. And it's because I do remember, I'm a wee bit older than you, I believe, And just based on the dates you said for your parents and everything. So I remember going through school in Canada, and yes, exactly what you said. It was about the history of.
Yeah.
And it's like the history of, and look at all the cool things they built, and let's go to
Yeah.
this place and
Uh-huh.
let's hang out here and look where the fire is, very much like that. But I remember as a child, I actually always wanted to know more.
Mm.
And so I did stuff on my own and reading on my own. And when people would say, I'd say, "Oh, well, did you know, for example, that about the Indian Act?" Or I'd
Mm-hmm.
say, "Did you know it's at one point?" And I think it's changed. I always mean to clarify that at one point, if you were a woman, and if you married
Mm-hmm.
outside, then you lost your
Yeah,
status.
that's my mom.
And there you go. And I said and people were like, "What do you mean?" I said, "How did you not know that? Like, read. This is part of what Canada has done." And it would boggle my mind. And I remember too, when I was in middle school, and this Indigenous family just showed up. And I'll never, it was interesting. And I mean, I grew up I didn't grow up in what I lovingly called Jewville, the hood.
Yeah.
I grew up north of the city. And so it was really white,
Wow.
like the Black family. And so I remember when they popped up at school, I was like, "Oh, they're almost brown like
Yeah.
me." So I started hanging out with them.
Yeah.
And I would go to the apartment, and I have
Whoa.
such a clear visual of it was a duplex, but they lived in the basement part.
Mm-hmm.
And I have such a clear vision of all these people and just having the best time
Yeah.
and just loving
Whoa.
it. And then they were gone. I remember that too. It was just a brief moment, but I think that brief moment
Mm-hmm.
and that brief interaction
Yeah.
did something for me. And so it made me want to learn. It made me want to understand, because it just
Yeah.
did. It just did. So that's why when I said to you, I was like, how do you not know?
Yeah.
How do you not know what Canada
Yeah.
did? What we did.
Yeah. And
So
it's really if that's but that also was another just personal moment that your life happened to also collide, where you got a little bit of a better exposure.
yeah.
But if if you don't come in contact, and what's crazy though is like the other part is that everyone's in like people don't realize that we are actually all around,
Everywhere.
and that's part of the programming, is that because people don't know how to see us in modern society, because they don't know we don't look like the way that you want us to look.
Oh,
They
because you're
also
not
just
running around in feathers and buckskin?
exactly.
Is that the
Oh, and
issue?
that we're not they like us brown, they like us in braids, they like us there's just a
Fit their
tradition. Yeah.
image.
And
Mhm.
so they actually don't realize that they're probably working with Indigenous people, they're probably going to school with Indigenous people, they're sitting on the subway, but
100%.
because um, they also it's so interesting, because people who grow up near small towns, or people who have or who grow up people who grew up in small towns near reservations, and they are
Mhm.
very familiar with being around Native people.
Right.
I
Mhm.
can always tell, because they'll come up and they can actually know your nation, right? Because they start to see the different um, qualities or
Yes,
characteristics,
yes. Yeah.
and so usually, and I'll know, where are you from, because it's like a white person who's saying,
What
"Are
do you
you
mean?
Ojibwe?"
Where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you really from? No.
No, like they like, where are you
Yeah, but
from,
they
that you would
know.
know that, right? And then they'll
Wow.
say
Yeah.
that they grew up beside some res somewhere, and then you're like, that's how
Yeah.
you know. There's and it's cool to me, but it reminds me, if you are not exposed, if you don't have that personal way that you were able to connect to this, you don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, and you're right. They're
Yeah.
everywhere. No, but no, but all kidding
Yeah.
aside, I'm just like processing even the people I've worked with, and I'm like, one of my best friends in the nursing world, because I used to be a nurse, she's Métis.
Yeah.
And another friend of mine, he is also First
Yeah.
Nations, and he's a nurse. Like, literally,
Yeah.
you're
We're
everywhere.
everywhere. I know.
You know. But you're right. Know before whom you stand. But we do hold these stereotypes,
Yeah.
and we hang on to them.
Yeah.
You know, we hang on to them. And it's ridiculous and wrong, and we know that.
Yeah. I mean,
And
the same thing crosses over
Mhm.
into when you don't look Jewish, when you don't
Yeah.
look like the Jew
Go figure.
that you want
When
to
you
look.
don't look Jewish,
Yeah.
or with my God love my black people, it's like, you don't sound very black. Are you sure are you sure your background's Jamaican? No, it's Jafaican. But when you don't fit a certain
Mm-hmm.
thing. But I do want to talk about your work.
Okay.
Okay, Teeny? Oh my gosh. So, you know what's also kind of neat? And I don't know if anybody, well, I shouldn't say if anybody picked up on this. One of the cool things about Reservation Dogs is that the co-creator also happens to be uh, a multi-racial Jew himself.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, dang,
I
that's
think
kind of
I
cool too.
originally met him as Taika Cohen. So I think when he won his
Yeah,
Oscar, he was nominated for
he
an Oscar.
became
He was Taika
what?
Cohen. Yeah, he's a Cohen.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He's a Cohen, but I think he goes by
he's
what,
Waititi
TT?
now. Yeah,
Yeah, TT.
yeah.
Yeah, but so what's it? I don't want to. I don't want to sound like that person, but I am going to sound like that person. Because all right, how is that? I'm watching it, and it is so freaking powerful. It is both made me kind of giggle,
Mm.
like, just kind of, oh dang. What? Oh, and part of it, I'll tell you, part of it I've watched in my office, and I was like, there's a lot of swearing.
It's a lot of swearing. I know.
I work in a
I
synagogue.
know.
But
Yeah.
it fits. It fits though. It's not
It's
gratuitous.
yeah,
Not at
and
all.
it's that world, and
Yeah.
because they're so committed to that authentic representation of their world, um, they're just they won't compromise. I mean, it's
And they
FX too,
shouldn't.
so they can
Yeah.
swear, but it's
Yeah.
not gratuitous. It's just real.
It really is. So as I'm watching, I'm feeling like I always say to people, when I really enjoy something, when I really enjoy a show, I feel not like I'm in it, but like I'm spying on somebody. You know what I
Cool,
mean?
cool,
Like,
cool.
you know what I'm saying? And that's what I feel like when I watch it.
That's great.
And like I said, I smile at parts really hurt,
Yeah.
parts resonate with me as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell me more, or tell everybody more about your character, because she's kind of cool.
She's very cool. So
Yeah.
Teeny was basically, let me set it up this way.
Yeah.
Season 1 is very much focused on the youth, the 4 teenagers, the 4
Yes.
living in rural Oklahoma, getting into trouble, working through the grief of their the death of the grief from the death of their best friend.
Mhm.
And it stays pretty much in their world for that first season. Season 2 expands their world, and we kind of pull back to see the larger influences, mentors, aunties, grandparents, the community that
Right.
not only shaped them,
Hmm.
but also created the world that they grew into.
Right.
So it's a really beautiful contextualization of that.
Hmm.
And fits really nicely coming after the more focused world from season
Of the
1.
kids. Yeah.
So that's why season 2 is a perfect way to introduce this character, Teeny, who used to live there. She grew up with the moms of the kids.
Right.
But after one of the moms died, who was her best friend, she just left.
Hmm.
And we haven't seen her since.
Hmm.
So we are seeing Teeny returning to the community because of another funeral, but she has not moved past the place in her heart from when she left.
Yeah.
No matter how many years ago that
Hmm.
was,
Hmm.
15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, that she is stunted in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes back with this incredible exuberance and fun, almost as if like uh, uh, kind of in the same vein of that teenage girl that she left as, you know?
Right, right.
So it was really important to show, how do you show stunted growth, but part of it is also a mask to pretend that everything's okay.
Exactly.
And that really is helpful when they have a personality that can be big, so that it can then break down.
Yeah.
And that's what we see with Tiny. She's like a Tiny, where I'm living, with Teeny.
Oh my goodness. I know why, because Teeny is
Yes,
right now
yeah,
near
in
Tiny.
Tiny. And that's what we see with Teeny, is a kind of macro example of the grieving process that all of them have to do. You got to deal with it, because if you
Yeah.
don't, it's going to get stuck. And there
Mm-hmm.
is and there are limits to where she can, how far she can live, how much she can learn and feel in her life. And she's now an older woman who
Yes.
still is probably restricted by the fact that she has not dealt with that original grief.
With her stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like your character. So I look forward to seeing more.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, no, it's
Oh, thanks.
fantastic.
Yeah,
It was
I
fantastic.
love playing her, and especially because it's just it's kind of a return to family. It's every single. If I didn't know them already, um, I knew of them. So it was like the whole cast, everyone who was a part of that. And one of the best comments we got, we're getting so much love and so many great
Mm-hmm.
comments, because it's in the States right now. It's coming to Canada September 7th. But
Mm-hmm.
somebody wrote, it's like, and this was for the Aunties episode where we all hit the health conference. She said, it's like you guys have known each other since birth. It's like that's what comes across
Oh.
on the screen. That the how
And it does. Yeah.
like the sisterhood of it, and none of them are sisters, right? They're all just the aunties. They're all
The
taking care of the
aunties.
kids.
We got the
Yeah,
aunties.
so none of them are related, but that's what we were trying to show, that that's how community works. That that's how, it doesn't mean there's no problems, doesn't mean you're not going to fight. It's like family, and community is just the
Sisters.
extension of family. Yeah,
Sisters.
exactly.
As you and I both
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Right?
And so,
You're bonded, you'll
yeah,
fight, you're
yeah,
connected. Some days you like each other, some days you don't.
yeah.
Sisterhood.
And I think also how important it is to be around that family, community, kinship. That it's, we're not meant to experience these things on our own, and we know from on both sides. I know from sitting Shiva the ways that we support and respect grief. That you don't mess around.
Mm-hmm.
Give
Yeah.
time and allow yourself to be surrounded by people that you love. And you're going to have the times alone, and you're going to have to,
Mm-hmm.
like, nothing lessens the burden of what you need to grieve.
Right.
But there are processes out there, and that's what faith and culture and ceremony. I mean, this is why we have these things, to get us
Right.
through those moments, and equal to Shivas and the ceremonies that we have around death, in Anishinaabe culture, or as we see in Reservation Dogs. We come together.
Yeah. Oh, what was her name? The matriarch. I begins with an M.
Mabel. Yeah.
Mabel. That scene. I was like, I actually, it's going to sound really weird, or maybe it won't. But when they said it's time
Mm-hmm.
and everybody went in and around her bed, I actually had a moment of, I hope that happens for me.
Oh.
Like I actually, oh God,
Yeah.
I actually had that
Yeah.
moment of, I hope that happens
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether I'm aware or not, it doesn't matter.
And
It was
yeah,
beautiful
it
and
is,
powerful.
and that's, you know, the being, because we are there for her, and we're also there for those who are, you know, for Alora, and I think
Yeah.
that's what, it's the richness of the show that we, and people were really hit hard with episode 4 and episode, which was a perfect segue into episode 5, but with
Mhm.
episode 4, because it just got to the depth of heart. Yes, these kids get into trouble. You know, the word they use throughout the show are shit asses. But like
Yeah.
that is the official
Yeah.
word of Reservation Dogs. We're not. This is when it doesn't matter who's good, who's bad. The judgment it just disappears. It is, how do we show up for people, and in that way,
Exactly.
that's Reservation Dogs just has that heart and that understanding of what the most beautiful part of our
Mhm.
community and our cultures are.
Exactly. It's great. And the part that I also really remembered that made me laugh was dinner and let's pray. And it was cheese. And he
Yeah.
and he said, I was like, oh dear, because what was it? Long and
In a
from, I
galaxy
guess
far,
there's,
far
yeah.
away.
I was like, I would have been that person,
But it's
like,
all, and that part is
but
also,
it was cool too.
it's
Huh?
great. It's just also, it's also really important. Like, that's such his character to do that. But I think
Uh-huh.
also what the show does is it dispels so many of the not just stereotypes, but the damaging romanticization that has happened
Mhm.
for our indigenous people in how we were represented in Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
And it's what has kind of screwed up how difficult it is for people to see us and accept us
Mhm.
as this, which is this, and which is why these really authentic contemporary representations need to happen right now, because
Absolutely.
they need to uh, be okay that we are not medicine. We are not all medicine people. Like
We're
that.
not all Pocahontas.
We are not all
Which story is crap
silenced. Yes,
too.
we are not to be silenced, to be
Mhm.
enslaved, to be
Mhm.
victimized. We are, or romanticized or
Mhm.
sexualized. You know, like, it's just, it's
Exactly.
there. It puts a multi dimension on a
Mhm.
very very limited idea of who Native people were, and that's really well done with comedy. So people,
Mhm.
you're kind of affecting the change without them knowing it. But just something as simple as that, of, you know, you want to hear this like real stoic Indian prayer, and instead it's like
It's like
Cheese's version.
I was like,
Yeah,
but I was like, dang. I was like, you go.
yeah.
It was. It's beautifully done. You're a wonderful actor.
Oh, thank you so
Um,
much.
like, yeah, yes. And I'm going to needs to hurry up and get. When did you say it comes to Canada so I can tell
September
everybody?
7th.
Oh, that's only a couple
I know, it's a
weeks.
couple weeks, and
It's only a
then,
couple
yeah.
weeks. Yeah. So that's
So
good.
they
That's
can
good.
watch right
I
now on
feel
Disney
blessed that I
Plus.
was able to see it.
Yes, you got the sneak peek. But on Disney Plus, you
Yeah.
can watch the first season right now.
Hmm.
And so you'll be all ready for September 7th drop of 2 episodes then.
Yeah. So thank you,
Oh, thank you.
Tamara. I had a great
Oh,
afternoon.
I had so much fun talking with you. I appreciate you
Actually,
wanting to go into
the
the
moment.
deeper parts of the topics and conversations.
Yeah. Well, I we need to.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just need
It's
to,
nice
you
when you have the
know?
space to be able to do that. So I thank you very
Yeah.
much for
Yeah.
that.
Oh, you're very welcome. I thank you for sharing. I really do, because I felt it.
Oh, good.
So I hope to run into you sometime in teeny
Yeah.
tiny. That's what I'm going to start calling
I
it.
do hit the city every once in a while, so it's not it wouldn't be the craziest thing for us to cross
Well,
paths one day.
you'll find me on
Okay.
Bathurst.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much. Thank you so
Toda
much for
rabah.
allowing
Thank
me this
you.
pleasure.
Bye.
Rivkush is hosted by me, Rivka Campbell. We're produced and edited by Michael Freeman. Our theme music is by Westside Gravy. We're proudly sponsored by the Canadian Race Relations Foundation and hosted by the CJN Podcast Network. If you like this episode, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. To support our work and everything else the CJN does, visit thecjn.ca/donate to make a monthly donation and receive a charitable tax receipt. Thanks for listening.
Scattered in the wind, never scattered too thin. To remember where we come from and the goal that's within. Zahav Yerushalayim, Asur Lishkoach, Hakdushat Haaretz, Shenoten Lanu Koach.